This video illustrates how to create a list of GPAs. Again, we use the identifier GPA, and we're going to start at the top of the list where the first index starts at 0. GPA subscript. Remember when you see this open square bracket rather, and followed by an element and the closed square bracket, GPA subscript 0, GPA subscript 1, GPA subscript 2, GPA subscript 3, GPA subscript 4, etc. And in the GPA subscript 0 array or list, we have the value 3.50. In the second element in the list, we have 3.75. The third one is 2.78. The fourth, 3.45. The fourth, 3.88. The fifth, 4.0. GPA 6, 4.0. GPA 7, 3.95. GPA subscript 8 is 2.82, and GPA subscript 9 is 3.0. And of course, we do have 10 elements because it starts at 0. One thing about creating a list, we can search through the list, we can sort the list, we can add to the list. It would be very time consuming for us to have 10 unique variables that are not even related to each other to display and try to find information in the list. It would be very tedious to try to accomplish. Okay, so let's see what this looks like in expressing this in Python. It's going to resemble very closely a previous example where we created a list of names. We're going to call this the GPA list. We still are going to use our index variable and set it to 0. And we're going to initialize our GPA list as an empty array. We need to do this when we are entering data from our keyboard. We're going to create or populate the GPA list using the while loop. And our goal is to just store them in memory simultaneously. To add some flexibility to the program, we're going to use an arbitrary variable name called num items, or it could have said number of GPAs or how many. We are quantifying an amount, so we're going to use integer, not string, as our data type. How many GPAs do you wish to enter? And rather than us putting in a constant, which constants don't change, variables do, so they're dynamic. We're going to ask to enter a particular GPA and the first one on the item, on the list rather. Append is the function that is allowing us to enter the item inside the list. Append or GPA.append, this special method has to have an object to associate with in order to carry out the function. And again, we have to navigate or go to the next element in the list, and we do that by using our loop control counter. Likewise, when we get ready to display the item in the list, it is going to be done essentially the same way. We're going to display the GPA and the item of the GPA and the actual content or the value of that GPA. Okay, so let's run the program. How many GPAs do you wish to enter? I'll say 7. First GPA is 2.50. Next one is 3.88, 3.75, 4.0, 3.97, 4.0, and 4.0. The first item shows 2.5, just like we entered it. The second one, 3.88 in memory. Third one, 3.75, 4.0, 3.97, 4.0, 4.0. Be sure to study this code carefully. All we're doing here is asking to enter it, but display it in a particular way on the screen. And then, of course, we're going to tell the computer to display the results. Okay, the next step is we're going to show you how to search for an item in the array or the list. Briefly referring to the Raptor version of creating a list and searching through a list, you'll notice that you're going to have to ask for the GPA you're searching for. When you do that, when you find that GPA, you want to count the number of occurrences that the GPA that you're looking for shows up. So you're going to need a few little extra variables to help us keep track of what we're searching for. Okay, so we want to search for a particular GPA, so we need a variable to store that GPA that we're searching for. And then we need to count the number of times or occurrences that GPA will appear. So we need another variable to keep track of that. So target GPA is the variable we're going to use to store the value that we're searching for. We're going to store that inside of target GPA, and then we have to compare it to each item on the list. So essentially what we're doing is we're saying, okay, within that GPA, we're going to check to see, is the target GPA, is it equivalent to the GPA subscript count, which in this case, the first time it may be 1. It may be 0. That's what the computer is going to keep asking and reiterating through a loop. Is the GPA, and it could be all caps at this point because of the word GPA, but is it equivalent to GPA subscript 1? And we're going to continue asking that question. And we'll keep going down the list. Okay, so let's see what that's going to look like. Very similar to what we did in the Raptor version. So to look for or search for a particular GPA in the list, first let's make sure that our data type for the information we're looking for is correct. GPA is a number, and it's going to have decimal places, so it's going to be float. So we changed this to float so that we may make a correct comparison. Of course, we already know what this set of instructions perform or do. It will display the GPAs. Now we're going to search for the GPAs. We reset our counter to 0. Target count is going to store the number of occurrences of the searched item. Target GPA is going to hold the value that we're searching for. What GPA are you searching for? So we store the GPA that we're searching for. We go through the loop. If the target GPA, which is what we just entered, is it equivalent to the first item on the list? Because count in this case is going to be 0. If it is, this is an if statement, and whatever is true has to be indented. We end the if here. If not, we go to the next item in the list. Do not indent this count inside of the if statement. If you do, the loop will not work correctly. And as long as if we find any of the items in the list to be equivalent to what we're looking for, the computer is going to keep track or stores each occurrence inside that target count variable. And at the end, what this loop is going to do is it's going to retain the original item we were looking for and how many times it occurs. And these are just, we're formatting it in a particular manner. So let's run the program. How many GPAs do you wish to enter? I'm going to put in 8, 3.88, 2.87, 2.99, 3.0, 4.0, 3.75, 4.0, 4.0. Now you may not know how many values you have, and you may not necessarily keep track of everything you enter. So this is the first GPA, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. What GPA are you searching for? Let's just so happen I'm searching for 4.0. The target GPA 4.0 occurs 3 times in the GPA list, and that is true. You can see the list. There's 1, 2, and 3. Go through this code and study it carefully. Let me change the size a little bit so we can see. I'm going to option configure idle, and I'm going to change the font size from 16 to 14 so that we can see the code a little bit better, but make sure that it is bold-faced. We're going to apply this change or setting and then press OK. So study all of this code carefully. We are entering the code step by step. Now you see how this is outside here. We're going to increase this line here so that your instructions or your lines aren't longer than the separating lines. Be sure to study through this code very carefully. It is your responsibility to make sure you understand the purpose of every instruction. If you don't understand, please ask questions. Always end with the end comment.